It's gorgeous out. Let's pop some ducks.
This is the UpDuck Podcast, a blend of upland and waterfowl hunting. Tune in as your hosts, Tyler Beaton, Jeff Ludicky, Matt Jeske, chat about training dogs and share their bird hunting stories, tactics, and strategies.
Hey, we're live. Gentlemen, what is happening tonight?
Not much. We're getting ready for you got a bunch of boxes over there, Tyler. You getting ready for the expo next weekend?
I am, yeah.
Open Season Expo.
Oh, yeah.
Wisconsin Dells.
I know. Matt, are you going to drive up from Iowa?
I don't think so. I'm trying to think what I have. I know I'm busy, but I don't remember what I'm doing.
That's fair. That's fair.
Yeah. Busy a couple weeks.
The booth's going to be hopping this year.
It is going to be hopping this year.
Yep.
It's going to be
fun.
I've got all of our product here that we're taking up there, so that's why there's all those boxes behind me. You can't see more. There's more here, and I'm blocking some here. Yeah, it's gonna be fun.
Yeah,
it's gonna be a good time.
I'll be there.
Yeah,
I'll be there Friday and Saturday. So if you're listening before the show, stop by and say hi.
Yes, please do that. Stop by, say hi. We'll have some dogs. We'll have some. I don't know. We might have coffee samples if that's allowed. I don't know. We're gonna have a lot of stuff.
Some new products to try out, possibly.
New products to try out. We've got some hat samples of what's coming this fall. I think we're gonna display as well. I've got those. They're hidden behind the boxes here, so it's gonna be fun.
Is there some apparel for some of the younger children, possibly?
Potentially.
Okay, all right. I don't want to ruin it.
Yep. And I can tell you there's going to be some serious show deals. I'm ready to just, I'm ready to cut some deals. We're making deals, shaking hands, we're having a good time. It's fun. I really enjoy this. I'm looking forward to it. I love connecting with people that follow KS Hunter, people that follow UpDuck, people that listen to the podcast, any podcast on the network. It's a good time. Nice plug there, Jeff. Well done. Yeah, good. Excellent. What else, Jeff? What are you drinking today?
I have a Third Space Milwaukee beer. It's the Happy Place Pale Ale. I've had this one before.
Okay.
Yeah.
Matt, what is our streak at now? Are we keeping track of Jeff's new streak?
We were going to keep track of if he had new ones, I thought.
Yeah.
I'd go consecutive, but I think we've already broke that.
It's been hit or miss. Maybe we'll start at episode 100 and we'll start the streak over.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's fair.
Okay.
That's fair. Matt, what's on your desk?
Just water.
Just water. We gotta like switch it up. You need like some electrolyte beverage in there too.
Yeah.
I mean, why not? It's 8:30 at night. Let's go. Anyway, enough of this small talk because we're going nowhere here. Let's bring in our guest. His name is Todd Schaller. He is with the Wisconsin Waterfowl Association. Todd, welcome to the UpDuck Podcast.
Thanks. Glad to be here.
Yeah, we are excited to have you. What is your title? What is your role over there?
I'm the vice president, and I'm also on the board of directors. And so just the WWA is a nonprofit, so our entire board of directors are all volunteer based. We do have some paid employees, but most of the work gets done through volunteerism. So
excellent. I just curiosity, like the vice president, what are you responsible for? What do you help execute?
Well, so the interesting thing with a vice president, so I joined in 2021 and nobody wanted to be vice president. So I just said, fine, I'll do it, because in the structure, I'm really just a pinch hitter when the president can't make it. So I figured that's a pretty safe role going in. Our president's very committed. So that's, the title sounds pretty high level, but reality is it's just part of the board of directors. I'm on the executive committee. So, we have additional meetings to talk about budgets and things that, in preparation for a board meeting. So.
Okay. All right. Have you had to step in for the president when he's
a time or two, but it's basically just it's running a meeting and making sure we get through the agenda. So, but I think the one piece is the executive director reaches out to myself and the president probably more frequently to talk about issues or things that he might be working on or thinking about, or those type of things. So probably a little more involvement with that title than maybe some of the other board members. So.
So Todd, I did a quick Google search of your name prior to the podcast, and I saw that you're also, is it the president of I don't want to mess this up, the Wisconsin Conservation and Education Foundation, correct?
Correct. I'm the president of the Wisconsin Conservation Education Foundation, which is it's the fundraising entity for the Wisconsin Conservation Wardens Association. And that was my prior career retirement. So it's raising money for education grants for members. We support the Wisconsin Conservation Warden Honor Guard. We provide funds to conservation officers nationwide who might be injured or killed tragically in the line of duty. We have several scholarships available to members and students, several students at UW Stevens Point and a couple other universities. So yeah, those two things, the WWA and the WCEF, keep me engaged and busy in retirement. And people sometimes say, "Oh, don't you get bored in retirement?" And the answer is absolutely not. I'm sure people could, but I don't. That's not my personality. So.
Now, you mentioned you were a warden early on in your career. Tell us a little bit about that. How did that start? When and how many years did you do that for?
Yeah, I was a conservation warden in Wisconsin for 32 years. I retired 5 years ago, right prior to COVID. No planning of that. That's just coincidental how that worked out. It really goes back to, I was raised in the outdoors. My parents, my dad particularly, was an avid outdoorsman, kind of got me plugged into it. Went to Stevens Point, graduated from Stevens Point. While I was at Point, I was doing some part-time work and internships in conservation law enforcement, state parks and things. And I was fortunate. I got hired. I graduated in December. No, I graduated in May and I got hired in January, the following January, as a warden. So 1989, and spent 32 years. About a third of that was field warden, which is what most hunters have contact with. About a third of it was first line supervisor, so a lieutenant. So I supervised multiple counties. And then the last third was upper management, which brought me to Madison, where I live now. And the last 6, I was the chief for the state, which was a amazing position. And just knowing and seeing what our staff did across the state to help people, to engage people, to hold people accountable when needed. So love the career. And same time when I retired, I was ready to retire and go on to the next phase of life. So,
what county were you doing your field work in?
I started in Racine. At that point in time, 1989, most new hires ended up in Southeast Wisconsin. It was a revolving door. We couldn't get people to stay down there very long, so a lot of people started their career down there. Spent a year there. Then I transferred over to Whitehall, Trempealeau County. I'm from near La Crosse, Bangor, small town outside La Crosse. So that was an opportunity to get closer to home and back near the river. And then I transferred to Fond du Lac. So I spent the biggest chunk of my career in the Fox Valley, Fond du Lac, Oshkosh, really around Lake Winnebago.
Sure.
Because that's where I promoted to that first line supervisor. So that was every county I had touched Lake Winnebago. So the Winnebago system was a big part of our work. So yeah, fun career. But in retirement, as I alluded, I wanted to stay involved in conservation. I wanted to stay involved in, the outdoor industry, outdoor space, whatever you want to call it. And and being able to volunteer in that is very rewarding for me. Plus the opportunity to say, no, I can't, or I'm not going to, or I'm going to miss that meeting because of, that's a nice thing about volunteering. So.
Did you grow up duck hunting in the Bangor area? Okay.
I grew up hunting holistically. I mean, I cut my teeth on rabbits and squirrels and, those things. And I really got into duck hunting, bow hunting. And then when I started my working, I just found limited time. I couldn't do it all. And I just, and bow hunting was hard if you don't have private property. I mean, public land can be a great hunt and it can be, successful, but it was always a challenge, particularly when I was working in that area. So I would go to public lands that I patrol, and now I got some knucklehead doing something wrong and I'm out trying to recreate. So I really focused on waterfowl and kind of grew it from there. So
that's fair. I have a buddy who every year when they're over the past few years, I've gotten really much more into duck hunting. He's like, when are you going to hang up the bow? When are you going to hang up the bow? It's like, the best time to duck hunt is also the best time to deer hunt. You got to pick one. It's really hard.
It is. I love the rut because, all the deer hunters go deer hunting, and deer gun season. I deer gun hunt only because I love venison, and we eat a ton of venison, and so I hunt opening weekends. Hopefully I'm successful. I got some pretty good private property I can hunt, and then it's rifle goes away, blazing orange goes away, and it's back out to the waterways. So
I always find it so interesting that former and current wardens, growing up as a kid, you never really thought the wardens were hunters, right? You always just thought they were out writing tickets to hunters and trying to catch us doing something we're not supposed to do. But we had some wardens on a previous episode, and now you're here. They're bigger hunters than just any of us, really.
Yeah, it is. Although that's changing too, in the hiring process. They're part of the work is changing. It's not just about hunting anymore. In Wisconsin, we do snowmobiles, boats, ATVs, environmental, state parks. And we're finding more and more people who we hired when they're successful, who maybe don't have that strong hunting background. But back in the 80s when I got hired, I mean, everybody hunted. And that was one of the questions I always got is, well, if you're a warden, you're working during the prime times. And that's true. But I always said I was working, but at the same time, I was engaging in conversations with people who had the same interests that I did. And, I guess I lived vicariously through their hunting adventures when I was checking them. If all things were good, that was a good check, and you'd have a good conversation. And obviously they all weren't good, but that was my way to get around the fact that maybe I wasn't hunting. So.
And the amount of scouting you can put in while you're on the clock too is probably unbelievable.
That's maybe probably not an unknown, but not something we often talk about. But yeah. You're right. Whether it's fishing or hunting, both.
Those wardens always know where the action is. So yeah, I'm not surprised.
It's fair. I apparently need to befriend some of our local wardens here, right, and get some tips and tricks here.
Yeah, you got some good ones down there, so they'll be more than happy to help you out. And I think oftentimes people get nervous with the check, and I understand that, and I get nervous if I get stopped by a trooper on the highway too. That's just human nature. But most of the contacts are very positive, and there might be some correction, education, or enforcement, but 90% of the people want to do it right, and they try to do it right. So
yeah, I mean I've been stopped a handful of times. Checks, it's fine. I mean, it's like you get a little bit nervous, but it's like for me, it's always like I know I'm following the law here. I'm not doing anything illegal. Take a breath. It's going to be fine. Plus, my intent is all good too, right?
Yeah.
I'm literally trying to do everything I can to follow the rules. So I'm not. But yeah, the nervousness definitely. I'm sure you have some stories of people being real nervous.
Yep, very nervous. The interesting thing, and I travel a lot to hunt now in retirement. I've been checked in more states by wardens, and I never share what I am or what I did. Maybe at some point late in the contact, but it's crazy the number of times I've been checked out of state. And the feeling you just talked about was that you're doing it right or trying to do it right, but there's just this little, all right, did I stiff my license in my shirt pocket or where is it? So.
Yeah, it's did you forget something or did you miss a line in the regs that you weren't aware of? Like, that's just that unknown that you missed something. That's where that fear comes from, I think.
And it's a whole probably another podcast, but waterfowl hunting is complicated. There's the federal layer, there's the state layer, there's the ID, there's a lot of things you got to do in the waterfowling world that don't apply for a squirrel hunter, a pheasant hunter, even a deer hunter. So,
and then you add the boating regulations on top of it too. If you're out navigating the waters, and it's a whole nother set that you got to know about.
Yep.
Yeah.
And see, Jeff, this is why I did not even entertain buying your boat.
This is why you just ride along with me.
That's right.
He's one of those, huh?
Yeah, he's got the dog. He's got the dog though, so it works out well.
That's
as long as
good balance.
As long as my alarm goes off.
That's right.
Oh yeah. I really want to ask more about your prior work as a warden, but I don't know, guys. Should we move it over? Should we talk about the WWA a little bit more here?
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So we did have Bruce Ross on last year, right? Talked about some of the things that you guys were looking at. I know, Jeff, you're very curious about a couple of things, but what's on the table? What's front of mind for the Wisconsin Waterfowl Association this year?
Front of mind is increase. There are two main things. One is increasing our role in public land, wetland restoration, wetland management. So we have some grant money through the Department of Natural Resources, Pittman Robertson funding that we've been able to secure, and it's really they have the funding. The department had that Pittman Robertson funding, but they didn't really have the staff to do the work. So through a grant, we could hire staff. They have hiring freezes and different things, so we're able to hire the staff. So we're able to do the work. So we've put a lot of effort into that here in the last year or two. We have two wetland ecologists on board, plus a contractor that we historically have used. We just announced in our newsletter this week, we're hiring a third full-time wetland ecologist to do more work on public land. We've always done a lot of wetland work and habitat work in Wisconsin. A lot of it has been on private property, partially because the majority of wetlands are on private property. I think it's 75 or 80% of wetlands in Wisconsin are privately owned. But members oftentimes wonder or don't see the benefit of that and think you're just helping a private person shoot more ducks. So to be able to get into the public venue is exciting. We've got 3 projects we've done. We've got probably 6 or 7 projects in queue. So in queue is basically meaning we're doing the legwork, the paperwork, working with the department to see if it's a viable project. Is it an affordable project? Can you get permits to do the work? All that. So that's super exciting. We have a major project going on in partnership with the Fish and Wildlife Service at the Necedah Wildlife Refuge, so central Wisconsin. over 1,000+ acres. It's a phased project, so we're going to be doing it in phases. Right now, it's on hold because of all the whirlwind in federal government and funding and stuff. But we expect that project to move forward. So that's some great habitat work. We continue to. I was actually at the Capitol today and met with legislators on a Sandhill crane hunt in Wisconsin. And what does that look like? I sat on the legislative study committee this summer on that, and the outcome of that was a bill that was just recently introduced through the legislative study system. The nice thing about that is it's bipartisan. The committee included Republicans, Democrats, hunters, International Crane Foundation, conservationists, farmers, the agricultural community. So we came out, they came out of that with a bill that I think is, it's really a comprehensive look at sandhill cranes. It's taking into effect conservation. It's taking into effect science and management by the Fish and Wildlife Service. It has an agricultural element to it. And hunting is a tool that's part of that. So a lot of work to go. That's a hot issue. But we're continuing to work on that. WWA has been a big driver in that. And the last thing we do a lot of is, and I lead our R3 efforts, so recruitment, retention, and reactivation of hunters, waterfowl hunters. We really stepped up in that place, and this will be our third year of holding, and we got some fantastic women hunters who hold a For Women by Women waterfowl event on the Trempealeau Wildlife Refuge. So it's a closed area, but in agreement with the Fish and Wildlife Service for that event, the training and the actual hunt occurs on the Trempealeau Wildlife Refuge, and it's a really neat opportunity. Women are the fastest growing demographic in hunting in general. So it's neat that we're part of that. And we have, like I said, some fantastic women who are within WWA who've been helping us with that effort. So
yeah,
so there's
Megan,
a lot.
Megan
There's
Jensen
a lot going on.
talked about that one when she was on the podcast, right? That event in Trempealeau County.
Yeah, Megan actually, she led that early on. She was the coordinator for that, kind of in her role as a warden. WWA was providing financial support on the backside of it and some other resources along with it. But yeah, Megan was a big part of getting that rolling. And now that it's rolling with other work and other priorities, Megan has stepped back a little bit, and we've got other people coordinating and running that program. So.
How do you recruit people for that? Like to go out and hunt for that?
It's really our best recruiter. We do a lot in social media. So we have what we identify our R3 program as the Waterfowlers Academy. We have a social media presence with that, and the people who manage that for us do a great job. So that creates a lot of awareness. It doesn't really help us recruit. Really, the word of mouth and individual contacts is probably our best recruiter. In that, we get a few come through social media who DM and those type of things and express an interest. But most of it's word of mouth, and then your best recruiters are the people who participated the previous year, and that's been extremely helpful. So we've had we've had people from Minnesota involved, a lot of Wisconsin people, hoping to grow that program, not in numbers because we were limited by space on the Trempealeau, but maybe find another venue or another place to hold an event like that. So.
Great. Jeff, I know you're curious about cranes, the crane hunting situation.
Yeah, I put a feeler out on social media and was asking to see if anybody had some questions. That was one of the top things on my mind, and some other people as well. I know you mentioned the bill is kind of going through right now, and realistically, what do you think the chances are that there could be a hunt in Wisconsin, and how many years do you think it's going to take before that could happen?
Well, in the political world, and it's kind of new to me. I guess maybe as a chief warden, I was involved a little bit politically, but in the role I'm at now, where you're kind of advocating for bills, politics is a long game. It's never a sprint. So it's getting introduced. We worked on it last year, but we never got a bill introduced. Now we have a bill introduced. So it's almost like you're taking incremental steps along the way.
Baby steps, yeah.
Baby steps. And so maybe this bill gets to a committee, and maybe the committee actually moves it to the floor, for a floor vote on the Assembly or the Senate side. Every step. So maybe it doesn't get to the finish line this year, but then next year it's almost like you start from where you ended in a way. Realistically, you're starting over, but because you've made that leg room, it's an easier start the next year. So, Jeff, to answer your question, if it would be passed today, it would be probably 2 years before we would ever have a season, because we have to have a management plan in Wisconsin, and the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service has to approve our hunt structure. So I'm hopeful that, within the next year or two, probably two, maybe we get it passed, and then you're 2 years out from that point in time. So it's not going to happen fast, but we're making progress and we're having good conversations. And, I think it's important that our hunters who support it track it and follow along, because at some point in time, we're going to need people to pick up the phone, send an email to their elected official and say, hey, I support this because of this, or I like this because of that. And that's what gets a bill moving along, is when legislators are hearing from people other than WWA. They're hearing from their local constituents.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that was exactly my next question was, how can we as hunters, help move this along and get our voices heard? And sounds like the best way is just pick up the phone.
It is. Pick up the phone. I think a part of it is also, doing your due diligence to understand it. It doesn't help to say, I want to hunt cranes because I like
they taste good. Yeah.
They taste good. And maybe that's why people maybe want to hunt it. But when you're talking to elected officials, they're gonna want to understand a little deeper. So I think as hunters, we have a responsibility to get our head around it a little bit more than just, hey, I want to hunt. So
I was going to ask that next, because I actually just read an article in my Delta Waterfowl magazine that talked about what you just talked about. So the summer committee and starting to move that forward. And, it talked about I think it was 17 states that have crane hunts so far. There's a really healthy Eastern population now. It's not quite like the Western or the Central. I can't remember the couple different populations, but, we've been a part of that growing population, you guys in Wisconsin now, for a couple of years. And that's why this is moving forward. What are some of those other points other than you want to, or it tastes really good? I know that agriculture was definitely one of the big hitters. Like, I actually know people up in that farm up in the Fox River Valley where you'd done some of your farm work. That is a huge problem, like on their farm properties. What are some of those other reasons that WWA would, maybe suggest some of their hunters research and understand more before kind of getting involved?
Sure. Probably I think one piece that you touched on is there's an agricultural impact to the tune of $4 million in Wisconsin. So that's significant. When you talk to farmers who are on a razor thin, profit margin, when their, cost of diesel's going up and the cost of seeds going up and the cost of fertilizers going up. Oh, now put this chemical on your seed to prevent cranes or have cranes dislike eating it. There's $10 more, per acre. So there's the agricultural component of it. To me, you know, the Fish and Wildlife Service is the overseer of migratory birds. They told us 10 years ago in the Mississippi Flyway and the Atlantic Flyway with the eastern population that it had reached a huntable number. And we could hunt it without having a negative impact on population. Hunters are, my biased opinion, are by far the most conservation-minded individuals out there. You know, think about what you guys do as individuals for conservation. You know, I'm a member of this group. I buy my license. You know, I go to the local state wildlife area and I clean it up. My federal stamp goes to, you know, improve wetlands. My state stamp goes to improve wetlands. Hunters are conservationists, and so it probably can help a species to have the hunting public engaged in it and plugged into it and aware of it. A piece of it is in Wisconsin, we have a constitutional right to hunt, fish, and trap. You know, so that needs to come into the conversation as part of the understanding of it. So it's really multifaceted. To me, I think, you know, hunting and conservation the conservation hunting community ultimately helps the Sandhill crane holistically. So,
Sure.
No, that's good. I think too, right? Because if you're not from Wisconsin, you're listening to this, there's going to be opportunities in your state, right, where you have an opportunity to make your voice heard to your local legislators, right? And Todd, listening to you sort of frame this out, right? So it's not just, hey, we want to do this because we like eating it, right? Framing it out from a legal standpoint, from a you know, economic standpoint. I think those are really big takeaways, right? So if something comes up in Iowa, right, Matt, it's like, hey, how am I going to think about this holistically and actually understand what's happening here so that when I make my voice heard, my local representative goes, oh, wow, that's a very educated opinion. That makes a lot of sense.
Right.
And we just multiply that voice by
500 times. And it's also important to realize it is a sustainable organic food. You know, that there's a ton of people coming into hunting because they know where their food is coming from, you know.
Yes.
And so I'm not saying maybe just don't lead with that, but that ultimately is part of the conversation. It's a huntable species. It's a organic food source that people love to eat, and
ribeye of the sky, right?
That's the term, yes. So, but yeah, it's an uphill battle, and I'm glad to be part of it, and I think we're making progress and more work to come. But I think, as we've been talking, hunters being aware of it, being educated on it, and being ready at the right time. And WWA is putting a lot of stuff out to say, now is the time to reach out to your legislator, and we'll probably put together some speaking points and some letter templates that people can build off of. So
Yeah,
I think that's huge too. And I'm gonna stand on my soapbox for a second, right? Because I think as hunters, we do have an opportunity. I think the waterfowl community does a really good job, but I see the deer hunting community a lot. I call it like dive bar science, where people have these theories that their dad talked about like 40 or 50 years ago, and they talk about it as if it's fact, right? And we just have an opportunity to be more educated. We just live in the age of information. Anyway, besides that rant right there, Todd, I'm really curious, right? You have all these vested interests sitting on this committee and having these conversations, right? They all, like, everybody wants something different from this. Like, what are those conversations? What is it like sitting in that room?
Well, we had 5 meetings over the summer, and really the first 3.5, 4 were really informational. So we had the department staff come in and talk about, you know, sandhill cranes. We had U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service talk about sandhill cranes. We had the agricultural community come in and talk about damage. We had APHIS, the program that provides depredation permits, talked about it. International Crane Foundation came in and talked about it. The hunting community. So the first part was really a informational download. And then, to your point, it's kind of roll up your sleeves and now let's start having a conversation, and don't always agree. And that's the world we live in, but you still can have the conversation, and maybe you don't agree, but you find some middle ground, that can work. I think everybody on that committee, everybody wants to do the right thing for Sandhill Cranes. Nobody wants to see the population decline, or be in jeopardy. Everybody there had that in agreement. Probably the disagreement was, what approach do you want to use? And I think what we came out with, as I said, is it's a multifaceted approach. It's not just hunting. It's providing funding for damage. It's providing cost share for farmers who might want to use Avapel. It's making sure we're doing it in a way that is science-based and good decision-making and management of that. So it was fun. At times it was, I won't say adversarial, but you just don't agree and you have a different thought. And, but it was, in the end, I think it was a really good product that we came out with. Not everybody agreed with the product, but at least from a vote perspective, we were able to move it out of the committee and move it forward. So.
Excellent. I think that's fascinating, right? Because thinking about how those conversations back and forth, right, where you do have this agreement, and how do you find that middle ground, right? Because we just have to do a better job of finding middle ground on some of this stuff. So interesting. Yeah. I have so many more questions. I could ask Todd. I think I could ask you questions all night. Jeff, Matt, before I go backward, anything else you guys want to touch on cranes?
No, go ahead, Tyler.
Okay. So going back to some of the other stuff, like the main focuses, the Necedah Wildlife Refuge project that's on hold right now. You said that's a phase project. When is that, like, if that resumed today or next month, like, when is that projected to actually be done?
We had prior to the whirlwind in federal government, I think we would have been moving dirt this year. And the first phase, I think probably anytime you do wetlands, it's so weather dependent. We had a good winter for projects, which is why we were successful with 2 or 3 other projects, smaller projects on public land. I believe phase 1, if we would have started on time, could have got finished in 25. And then the question was funding for phase 2. But it's a neat project. It's the classic wetland because it's providing habitat. The restoration project provides habitat. It improves water quality. It addresses some flood issues that the local townships were having with roads and flooding out of roads. So it's a really neat project that kind of does everything that we know wetlands can do. And oh, by the way, now it creates some additional hunting opportunity. So
that's really cool. When you're looking at projects, right? Like, are you trying to identify projects that have that other value, not just the hunting value, but like, hey, we're going to help some local towns avoid flooding and this, or things along those lines?
It absolutely helps. Yeah. I mean, I think any wetland work you do has benefits well and beyond the hunting world. And the projects you're probably most successful in getting funding for and in getting support behind are the ones that, touch all those things. That's neat. And a lot of times they're small projects, and it's not like it's going to create a new hunting spot for anybody. However, it has a benefit above and beyond that from a habitat perspective, water quality perspective, things like that. So,
yeah, I mean, more habitat means more birds in
Yeah.
general, right?
Yep.
So,
And it's not just waterfowl either.
Yeah, no,
Yes.
it's sandhill cranes, and it's
Mhm.
it's it's amphibians and frogs and fish, you name it. So
all right. And then, so going back to the queue, right? You have like 6 or 7 projects in your queue that you're analyzing right now. Like, how far out are you guys planning? Is this 5 years? Is this 10 years? Is it 15 years?
well, when we brought the individuals on board, a lot of the front end work was it was desk work. It was looking at projects that maybe the department had considered previously, and then trying to get their head around it. And is it a permittable work? Is it a work that's affordable? So that's kind of the front end. So we're probably working 2 years, 3 years out on some of these, because once you identify it, then you gotta do the desk work, identify it. Then they got to go out and do the field work, and measure the things and make sure the elevations are what the computer says they are. Then you got to get the permits. Then you got to contract. You got to put out bids for contractors to do the work. So there's so many steps in this, and I think sometimes people are like, oh, you're not doing enough, but follow along once and understand what it takes to do a project. We'd love to just own a backhoe and go out and roll into the wetlands and get the work done, but the world doesn't work that way. And then what's the weather like? Now, we all want more water because that does good things for nesting birds and things like that, but that makes wetland projects extremely difficult. So
Yeah, that's a good point. This one I had considered.
yeah.
So,
And a lot of the work happens wintertime, when you got frost in the ground and you're able to get into these areas that you can't touch them. So,
sure. Okay.
and that's our duck stamp money in Wisconsin. That's what's paying for a lot of these projects, and then we can leverage that money with other grant opportunities. I think we did some math here. For every dollar invested, we're getting about 3 in return, which is that's a pretty good return on investment. Other funding sources that we can pull in. So
that would that would be a solid ROI.
Yeah.
I would take that. So the Wisconsin Waterfowl Association in general, for those that aren't very familiar with it, how do you guys make money? How do you stay afloat? How do you fund yourself as an organization?
Yeah, great question. So we're a nonprofit. So we're a 501c3 conservation organization. Our funding, we've shifted some of our funding. So we've always been, like a lot of conservation organizations, we've always been banquet focused and raffle focused. Hold a banquet, raise $10,000. Hold a banquet in Waukesha, raise $12,000. Hold one in Green Bay. So that has been a kind of a staple of ours over time. However, that's tough to maintain. It's tough to have consistent funding that way. So we use the banquet raffle venue. We work with sponsors and donors, whether private donors or organizations, to help fund that. Probably the space we've gotten most involved with here recently is grants. The fact that we're working on a project for the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, that's federal grant that we have access to. State grants through duck stamp money, that's a big part of it. So the grant world we've moved into has probably helped us financially considerably, and it's allowed us to do more work. The thing is, grant money it's purpose specific. You don't. Our banquet money is, we can spend it where we want to spend it. But when you get a grant, you know, it's for a specific project or a specific work. So it's a little different world that you got to navigate, but it's allowed us to grow, and it's allowed us to do some really great things here in the last 4 or 5 years that I've been involved. So
good. What about the expo?
The expo, the Waterfowl Hunters Expo. So you talked about an expo in your booth. So I'm assuming you'll also be at the Waterfowl Hunters Expo in August with your booth.
I will. So I'll take a step back. So the booth is at the Wisconsin Open Season Sportsman's Expo in Wisconsin Dells, and
Right.
it is Okayest Hunter will be the booth. I co-own that with Eric Clark, who runs the Okayest Hunter podcast. So we'll be there, but we'll have different flavors of podcasts. Like Jeff and I will be there. We'll talk waterfowl and dogs and everything else. So the expo that you're talking about, that one, Jeff, you went to last year, correct?
I did. I had a great time. Yeah, I really enjoyed it.
I am planning to attend this year. I have not announced that to my wife that I'm planning to take off for that weekend, but yeah, she's in the other room. I don't know if she can hear me right now, but yeah, I'm planning to attend this year. So
yeah, no, the Waterfowl Hunters Expo, WWA is a big part of that. It's not a huge fundraiser for WWA. We do some things with it. The neat part about, talk about some dates here real quick, but any money that comes into the Waterfowl Hunters Expo it goes to some very specific purposes. It's not putting money in anybody's specific pockets. It's going to build and sustain the expo into the future. So in order to have an expo in 26, you got to have money from 25, and you got to have rainy day money, because you don't know, if you have a washout, what that looks like. Money from the expo also goes to public land wetland projects. So it comes back through WWA and allows us to do some of the work with the staff that we have on board. We provide scholarships from the expo funding, and we also provide research grants. So that's, again, I volunteer because they're doing things that help conservation. That's why I want to invest my time in resources. So the expo, August 22nd, 23rd, at the Oshkosh Sunnyview Expo Center in Oshkosh. We're excited. 25, we're going to 2 days. Last year, the first 4 years was 1 day. We're going to a Friday night from 12 p.m. to 6 p.m. Saturday from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. We got some great sponsors. We got Onyx Hunt is a presenting sponsor for this year. We got Banded, Lucky Duck, Wisconsin Outdoor News, Mid-States Marine, and Avery as our gold level sponsors. So some big names in the world of waterfowling who are part of this expo. And it's such a neat, Jeff, you were there. I'll let you speak to it, but it's a neat event. It's just a flurry of activity. And I'm working, but it's just this buzz of activity. And if you have any interest in waterfowling, and you live in the Midwest, you probably should get this on your calendar.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I really enjoyed it. It was a different venue than what I think a lot of the people in Wisconsin that go to a lot of these shows are used to, where you just have a big expo center indoors and there's a whole bunch of aisles, right? It's real spaced out. Some stuff is inside, some stuff is outside. There's an area where you can shoot guns. There's a woman's area, a kid's area. Like there was like a little bit of everything, which I thought was really cool.
Yeah, it's exciting. Last year we had 6,200 through the door, roughly a little over, with a 2-day venue. We're hoping we hope to grow that. We hope that 62 just doesn't split between 2 days. We're hoping to grow it and maybe get up into the 8,000 category. Ideally, would be nice. We're also, WWA is on Friday night. They're going to have a banquet associated with it. So the the expo will be in one place. When the expo ends, we're going to hold a traditional WWA banquet at the Oshkosh. It's down on the riverfront in Oshkosh, so that'll be another part and opportunity. But all the things that you mentioned, Jeff, are coming back. Fastest retriever, dog seminars. We got some influencers coming in. We got field to table seminars. Yeah, it's fun. It's a flurry of activity. So put it on your calendar, Tyler.
I will. I mean, I think one of the big draws for me would be going and meeting a bunch of the folks that we've had on the podcast, right? And seeing these people, meeting them face to face. Like that's always really, really fun, right? I love the best part about doing a podcast is the relationships that you build and the people that you get to meet. And so doing that would be huge. Fastest retriever, maybe. I don't know. I thought about doing that with the little black dog.
I was going to say Ren's pretty quick.
She's fast.
Yeah. I watched a little bit of that last year. It was kind of a hoot to watch some of those dogs running, grabbing bumpers.
Yeah, it's popular, and it's fun and funny because the crowd, the pressure around the dogs, sometimes they don't respond the way you would like them to respond. But so. And now the dogs are allowed anywhere in the event, correct? You can bring your dog. You can walk around with him or her. Yep. Dog friendly, family friendly. Yeah, it's we got watering buckets. We got bags to pick up the disposal. We got pools that they can jump into to cool off if they're getting warm. So yeah. Now, Todd, nice. If you were gonna pitch somebody to attend, what would you say are the top 3 things that somebody should do? Say they only can be there for a few hours. What do you suggest they do first?
Yeah, say somebody coming from Iowa with a 3.5-year-old that is going to be in charge of them that weekend, hasn't been up there for years to watch that event, and other than meeting some people I've talked to over Google Meet, would be some good reasons to
I would say you're bringing a 3-year-old, so I would say the first thing you're going to want to go to is the youth zone. So you just to give the 3-year-old a little taste, with the hopes that you can then is bribe a good word? You can then
it's fine.
Bribe them to
go
to other parts, and then maybe come back to the youth zone.
Sure, it's a good suggestion.
I would start with the youth zone. If you're into dogs and listening to your podcast, I know a lot of you guys are and have dogs, but we got some great dog training seminars. The shooting venue, the shooting zone where you can try a gun. We have gun fitters there. One of our seminars is going to be, it's sponsored by Browning, but it's an individual who is going to put on shotgun shooting tips, not tricks as in, but how to improve your shotgunning. So I would go start youth zone, then I would go to the shotgun try a gun area. You got to walk through the vendor space and either jam your credit card deep into your pocket or pull it to the top. We like to have you pull it to the top, but and then as a treat, you can hit the food trucks, and then on your way out to wear out your 3-year-old, so he or she sleeps in the car on the way home, run her past the youth zone one more time. So there you go. I think they were painting decoys or something like that last year. I saw. Yep, they had they built wood duck boxes. They had some decoy painting, BB gun shooting, archery shooting. Yeah, they had it. I run the volunteers for that, so I'm coordinating all the volunteers. And I walked into the youth zone. I almost got trapped. There was so much flurry of kids doing different things and holding hammers and paintbrushes. It's like you're lucky to get out alive. So, right. And Tyler, I think I saw there was free coffee last year too, and when I walked in the door. So,
oh man,
you're all over that.
I am all over that.
I think it was Riverstone Kennels that was doing the free gun dog grind coffee last year. Yeah,
probably. Yeah, that would make sense.
They're coming back as presenters also. I think they're going to be in our dog zone. I don't know if I think both of them. Obviously, it depends upon with Whitney whether she's got dogs coming, puppies coming, but. I know Josh is committed. I think they said Whitney would be there too. So
cool. Yeah. I'm looking at the schedule right now. Yeah, Whitney is supposed to be there, as well as Josh. We've had Whitney on. Really good, really insightful. Obviously, she handles a lot of puppies. Also, I noticed that Justin Vandehay is going to be in the outdoor dog area this year too, which is cool.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. And all of it's for $10. $10 gets you in the door, $5 for parking. Kids under 12, I believe, are free, or maybe even higher than that. But what can you do for $10 nowadays? And you might spend a little more there as you walk past the vendors, but it's quite a treat for $10. And we haven't finalized some of the pricing for 25 because we're trying to figure out the 2-day. Do you provide a 2-day option? That type of thing. So some of that's we're still working on. So,
I mean, the outdoor kid area, you might have sold me on bringing my 2 young girls along.
I say we might have to link up there.
I heard paintbrushes and hammers, and I was like, okay, well, we like both of those things right now. That sounds great. No, I'm excited. I'm excited to attend the expo. I'm very excited for it. So I'm looking forward to it. And Todd, obviously we can sync up there. I'd love to meet you in person, shake your hand. So
yeah, absolutely.
Great. Gentlemen, what else?
Well, I do have one other additional thing that I wanted to talk about. This is kind of shifting gears again back towards some government-related topics. The wet feet rule. This was something that last year kind of came to the surface in the state of Wisconsin, and everybody was very nervous about it. Everybody was very curious. There was rumors flying around about people getting tickets. For those people that may be out of state, the Wisconsin Constitution had always stated that navigable waters shall be forever free, right? That's something that as long as your feet are wet, you're legal, right? Where now in Dodge County, there was a landowner that I think decided to sue. And now it's kind of tied up in the courts, and the judge ruled for it, in favor of it. And I kind of wanted to get an update on that. It kind of fizzled out a little bit, and I'm curious where that stands.
Yeah, I think it was Jefferson County.
Jefferson County, okay.
I don't know where it stands. I think a couple things with that. One is that is a local court, local judge ruling.
Mm-hmm.
So it doesn't automatically have statewide impacts or effect. I think we got to be cognizant of it and be aware of it. But until it reaches an appellate court or a Supreme Court, that's where then whatever the decision is has a bigger impact. And, in that particular case, I think they were saying, the wet feet rule only applies below the ordinary high water mark. And once the water breaches the banks, the ordinary high water mark, the rules, rights of navigation are gone. Historically, that has not been the understanding. I think there's been some attorney general ruling on it, some long historic court cases in the Horicon Marsh that kind of set the precedent that we're at. I don't know where it's at. I don't know that there was an appeal underway, or if the department or the state was appealing it. And maybe they chose not to because it was, just a local ruling. But it's something to be aware of. And I think, again, as hunters, we got to be educated on what's going on out there in the changing landscape. But yeah, I don't know the final answer on that, other than that local court ruled in favor of the landowner in that case under those circumstances.
Sure. Okay. So it sounds like there's still a lot to be determined, and that it's probably not likely something that's going to be, seeing a change in the regulation book here anytime soon.
Right. I think that's a great way to put it. And I think, right. And again, I think we just need to be aware of those things going on and what are the impacts if we start to maybe push too far. And I don't know all the circumstances in that particular case. I know the basics was they were in a field area, an ag
Right.
field that had been flooded. So
Yeah, and I think he was talking about fan boats or something like that. That was, making a lot of noises, bow fishing at night or something along those lines. But, I think that's the big thing as hunters. We just got to be conscious of that, and we need to be respectful, even if it is a flooded field that you're, driving your boat into. It doesn't mean all the rules go out the window and you can just throw all your trash and all your
Right.
empty hulls. We have to be respectful of that as well. And I think that's the big thing is, a couple people ruin it for everybody, right?
Yeah. Yeah,
So-
I've always believed that just because you can doesn't mean you should.
Mhm.
And you got to kind of evaluate it based on the circumstances and make good decisions based on the circumstances.
For sure.
Excellent. All right. All right. So we move into what are we calling it now? I ask because I forget every time. Are these pass shooting shots? Are these sky blasting questions? What are we calling these?
Well, we have a former warden here, so maybe we need to call it pass shooting.
I know. Well, here's I listened to your podcast where that was debated, and I believe you should stay with. I think you said sky blasting was
Sky blast, yeah.
because that is a relative term. So
Uh-huh.
I hunt. I lay out hunt on Green Bay. So to me, sky blasting is 30 yards and greater. Maybe Jeff, to you, sky blasting is 40 yards and greater. So I think you're safe using sky blasting. I don't think it's a negative view. Some do, but I think it's a perspective. So I would say stick with it. So,
All right. We have some friends on another network that might think 10 yards plus is considered sky blasting. Some of the out west hunters, and they're on that skinny water.
Right.
It's true. I never thought about it that way. It really is all relative to your hunting.
Yeah. Oh,
situation.
for sure.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. I feel better. Sky blast questions.
There you
Moving
go.
aside.
One question though. So can the guest ask the host sky blast questions? Because I have 3. Is that fair game?
I like
Oh
that.
my! That's a first. This is a first.
Yeah.
I think so. Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah.
We should just have Todd start it off here then.
Yeah.
No, you guys go first. And I'll go second.
Okay. All right. Okay.
Could be an interesting way to wrap up the podcast.
Oh, I love this. Is gonna be great.
Hopefully he doesn't ask the muffin and the baby one that I did.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. All right.
Oh.
Who wants to go first, boys?
I can go.
Go ahead, Matt.
Yeah. How many states or what states did you hunt this past season?
This past season, Wisconsin, Missouri, Arkansas, Iowa. Yeah, those this past season.
All right. What's your shotgun of choice for the field? What are you taking out?
I have a Benelli M2 that's probably 25 years old, and I love the feel. It's quirky sometimes. You got to keep the doggone thing cleaned and oiled, but I really like that Benelli M2.
Sure. Do you have a favorite mount, like taxidermy mount, that you have at your house?
I do not have one taxidermy mount.
Did not expect that.
Not
Wow.
me either.
I've just never. I've put my money other places.
Sure.
I know what they cost, and
Yeah.
Sometimes
Yeah.
a picture is just as good.
it is, and I mean, I like them. I go to other people's houses and see your guys in the background. I understand the reasons behind them. I never put my money there.
Sure. All right. That's what I had.
All right, I got a few. Favorite music genre?
I'm a country music, old country.
Old country. Okay.
Old country. Yeah.
Do you have a favorite artist?
I don't know that I do. Well, probably in I don't know that they even play anymore. Sawyer Brown was always one of my favorites. I still like their songs. I think Mark Miller is still in the landscape doing music, but I don't know if they're still a band.
Awesome. Okay, are you a truck guy?
Am I a truck
A
guy?
truck guy?
Yes.
Okay. Do you have a specific make that you're loyal to?
Absolutely.
Okay.
It's a Toyota.
Toyota.
I have been committed to Toyotas for a long time, and they've done me right, and I keep going back.
You'd probably run that sucker to 400,000 miles.
I've never done that. I've always, roll them over and get them off my landscape before they start causing problems. But no, I've always been into Toyotas.
Okay, I think that's a first for me asking that question.
Yeah.
I like it. Okay, my last one. I know it's early, but are you optimistic or pessimistic about the waterfowl outlook for 2025? I
am always optimistic. I think if you put some time in, you do a little scouting, do a little research from a hunting perspective, I'm always optimistic. And part of that probably comes because obviously pulling the trigger and putting birds in the strap is part of it, but it's so much more than that for me. Who I'm hunting with, or the dog next to me, or the sunrise or the sunset. So I'm always optimistic.
Very good. All right, that's all I got.
Okay. All right. Standard one here. Todd, coffee or energy drinks?
I'm both. So I start with coffee, and then later on I switch over to energy.
Okay.
Nice.
All right.
Double dipping.
There's a lot of firsts on this podcast here.
Yeah.
I did not expect that. Do you own any dogs?
I do. I have a small Munsterlander. First time I've had labs up to my current one. He'll be 4 here in a couple months. Small Munsterlander. So a versatile dog breed. Pointing, I've made a ton of mistakes with him, but he is a lights out hunter. He's a terrible pet. He's got some anxiety issues, but the 3 or 4 months I get to hunt him, it's a ton of fun. So
you take him out in the duck blind?
Yeah.
That's awesome. I need to see some pictures of that.
That's a first too.
Yes. This is the podcast of first. That might be the name of it. Podcast of first here. All right. Have you ever hunted southeastern Wisconsin?
I have. I've hunted down there a couple times. Well, it depends upon how far west you got to go to consider it, or how far west you can go and still consider it southeast. But no, I worked in Racine, so I hunted down in the Racine area when I was working down there. There was some phenomenal duck hunting down there. Again, that was 80, 89, 90, 91. But I've hunted in southeast.
Okay. And then how many different species have you harvested of duck? Do you keep track of the North American 41?
I've never kept track. I've seen people doing it, and I sometimes grab a book and I'm like, oh, maybe I should try to think my way back through it, but I never invest my time or energy. And I've shot a variety of species. Again, I do a lot of Green Bay layout hunting, so there's some opportunities there with scoters and longtails and things like that are pretty unique. So I have not shot a wood duck in probably 10 years, and partially just because of how I hunt and where I hunt.
It's interesting. That's great. All right, enough of my questions. I'm really curious, Todd. You've got questions for us.
I'm nervous now.
I am feeling a little nervous. I feel like I'm getting license checked here by the warden. So
all right. Well, first
do you have a plug in your shotgun?
Trying to make you nervous. So I'll start. I got 3. How about you all answer them, and I'll start with Jeff with the first one, and then answer it, and then I'll go to the second one, and I'll start with Matt. So he get, the one guy gets kind of I got to make a decision right away. So on a hunt morning, do you eat an actual breakfast or do you eat junk?
Oh, I'm all snacks in the blind bag. So I usually will I like those kind breakfast bars.
Yep.
So I'll have one of them, and then I make a little Ziploc baggie of Honey Nut Cheerios. And then I have my coffee. That's what I'm taking out to the boat or the blind with me. Yep.
Matt?
I'm definitely snacks as well. From where I have to travel to my boat launch, it's way too early for a 45-minute commute up there to make any sort of breakfast. So I'm all snacks. Usually just like a bag of granola and some sort of protein bar or something.
So I what I discovered this year is that I don't actually need to eat in the morning. I can just fast and drink copious amounts of coffee. And so I just wouldn't eat. I would just drink coffee and not eat until like 11 or noon. Skip a whole meal.
And we can't rely on him for donuts because every time he's the donut guy, he misses his alarm and doesn't show up at the launch.
I am all about the breakfast. I'll get up. I don't care if it's at 3 for a 4 o'clock leave. I gotta have breakfast. I just, and it's eggs. It's something real.
The whole deal. That's awesome. Well, that's the beauty of pheasant hunting. Like, even if you're like in Iowa or Minnesota, it doesn't start till like 8 or 9 o'clock in the morning. So you can get up and drink your coffee, make breakfast.
Yeah. All right, Matt. So it's 2-part. Jerk cord. If you use it, is it more than 75% of your trips? And if you don't use it, why not?
I don't use it. I have one in my boat. I used to use it at my walkout spot, but since I got a dog and hunt out of my boat, the extra line in the water and the setup, it's just not. I thought about going back to it as I hit some of these smaller spots again this next year, but it has not been used in the last several.
Tyler.
I do not use one because I am a try hard wannabe duck hunter. That's why. I'm still to be frank, I'm just acquiring all of everything that I need to hunt solo here. So I've thought about that actually a lot in the past month. I also have dogs though, multiple dogs. I don't hunt one at one time, and that is a whole nother animal here that I'd have to wrangle.
Yeah, I am a firm believer in jerk rigs. I love using them. I think they're a deadly weapon to have in your arsenal. Like, I've seen ducks just bank super hard as soon as you hit that jerk rig. I don't typically, if I'm hunting solo, I have a pointer, so I'm not bringing her, so I don't have to worry about the dog aspect. I still find myself tripping on them all the time because I forget they're there. Like, naturally that happens. But I think they're a fantastic tool. So every time that I have it with me, it's going out for sure.
Yeah. I'm a big user. I just try to position it so my dog doesn't hit it every time, and the 1 or 2 times he hits it, I'll deal with it. So
yeah, and that's a perfect plug for me here real quick too, is I just started a company now, Shot Shell Hunting. I'm making a jerk rig for land use.
Oh.
So, yep. If you come to the Open Season Expo, I'll have some on display.
All right.
Yep.
I may have to make a run to the Dells this weekend.
Okay.
Tyler, who was the most influential in your waterfowling path?
Jeff and Matt. Literally Jeff and Matt.
Okay.
It's the people that are closest to me. I'm not a big OKS Hunter is very much a social media content engine. But outside of that, I'm not on social media. I don't follow a ton of influencers in the deer hunting space and the waterfowl space, anything like that. But the people close to me, who I speak with, who I ask questions to as I learn how to not be so terrible at this, those are the people that are most influential on me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I had a buddy in high school. I would say he's the guy that got me into waterfowl hunting. I was a huge pheasant hunter, deer hunter, turkey hunter. And then in high school, he kind of took me under his wing and dragged me out to the blind. And we made a ton of mistakes. And, it's funny, you look back at a lot of that stuff and you're like, what were we doing? Like, that was just embarrassing. But that's how you learn, right? And I would say, he's probably the one that got me so addicted to waterfowling.
Yeah, and I've talked about it, I think, on the intro one. I always wanted to hunt, didn't come from a family of hunters. My dad just met a guy through work that heard he wanted to take his kid out. And, that buddy of his, Jake, is the one that I kind of owe everything to as far as the intro to hunting and intro to waterfowling from my very first time out in the duck blind, for years going out with the two of them.
Yeah, good. Yeah, my dad was by far the most influential in all my hunting, but definitely the waterfowl space too. So,
Those were good, Todd. I like that.
Yeah, those are excellent.
Those are great.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
Feel better
Thank you for
now.
putting those
Yeah.
together. Yeah.
Yeah.
That was fun.
That was good. I wish we had more guests do that. All right. We're at the end here. So Todd, this is the chance to plug the Wisconsin Waterfowl Association. Probably be a good idea to give some information on how folks can join, get involved, how much it costs, that sort of thing as well, where they can connect with you, where they can connect with the WWA. Anything you can think of here, let's get it out there on the table.
Sure. Yeah, WWA. I mean, it's all about Wisconsin, and it's all the focus, all the work we do is right here in the state that 3 of the 4 of us live, and it's about all things important to waterfowling. We're celebrating our 40th year this year, so we have a long track record of the work we do. The fact that we continue to grow in what we're doing, particularly in the habitat space, is neat. Those interested to learn more about it, go to WisDuck.org is our website. Exciting that we're going to be rolling out a new website probably within the next month. So when you go there, if you go there in the near future, it might be a little overwhelming because it's a old build with a lot of clutter. But that's where you can find out what we're doing. It's where you can find out how to get involved. It's how you can volunteer. It's how you can find out where we have events, where we have banquets, where we have cleanup projects, and it's where you can join as a member, buy raffle tickets, those type of things. So, in staying in conservation and being a passionate duck hunter, it's an organization that I'm all into, committed to, and I think because of what it does for Wisconsin and Wisconsin hunters.
Fantastic. It's great. Yeah, definitely go check that out. We'll link the wisducks.org. We'll link the Waterfowl Hunters Expo, and anything else in the show notes too for folks too, if they'll make it easy. We'll hopefully make it easy for you. Todd, really appreciate you jumping on here, taking the time. It was great to connect here virtually. I look forward to connecting in person here later this year. And yeah, we will be in touch. For folks who've made it this far, thanks for tuning in. If you have 10 seconds, leave us a quick review and send us any feedback you have on social media. Other than that, have a great morning, evening, afternoon, or night, or whenever you're listening to this podcast. Later.